Welcome back, everybody, to Big Apple Banter. We got the three of us tonight, myself, J-Man, and Matty L. And it's been a little bit of a while at this point, but we promised you guys a defensive free agency podcast a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the offense. It's been a while, but there are some big names out on the market on the defensive side of free agency. And guys, I don't know about you, but this Giants defense needs some work.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think it needs some work. Before looking at all the stats, I thought we had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. But when you look at the stats, it's not too horrible. We were 20th in opponents' points per game, which it's bad, but we have the number 3 pick in the draft. So obviously our defense, did better than our offense and that kind of stuff. But we were 23rd in opponents' yards per game. We were 19th in third down conversion. We have some really bad stats. We have some really good stats. I think overall the defense definitely needs some work, but I think the offense being very bad and the defense having to stay on the field for a prolonged period of time definitely dragged down the defensive stats that we're seeing. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think our defense was primarily carried in terms of stats based on our pass rush ability this year. You take a look at our run defense really wasn't that great. I mean, Chris pointed out before we started the show that our opponent's rush play percentage was so far down. And we think that's due because they just saw the weakness that our secondary was and they just wanted to attack it. Because their opponent's pass play percentage was number 3 in the league. So yeah, I do think our run game definitely needs a lot of help. The one thing I'll say that was kind of interesting that I saw was that, the way that Shane Bowen runs the defense, he didn't send the blitz all that often. Compared to Wink Martindale, who blitzed at a 45%. Yeah, he blitzed at a 45% rate. Shane Bowen decided to only blitz 28% of the time this year. However, our sack rate percent was up from last year, which I thought was interesting. We actually nearly doubled it at 12% versus 6% clip last year, and our pressure rate was higher. So, the Giants' defensive pass rush was really good this year, but we'd like to see a little bit more, I'd say, from the run defense and definitely from the secondary.
Yeah. Yep. So just to kind of summarize the overview, the Giants' rush defense wasn't necessarily horrific, but it wasn't great. And that's even worse considering the fact that teams did not run the ball a lot. You can say they wanted to pick on our pass defense, which is probably true. They also probably didn't want to mess with Big Sexy Dexy, which we'll get into a little bit, one of the best run stoppers in the NFL. So just to run through some numbers, in terms of opponents against the Giants, they rushed the ball 47.86%, which was 30th in the NFL. They had 4.6 yards per rush, which is 24th, so that's not terrible. And 26 in both rushes and rush yards per game, so that's all right, I guess. And then the pass defense is where it really gets bad. So the Giants defense struggled against the pass. We'll get into who we want to sign in the secondary. But teams passed 52% of the time, which was third. They had a completion percentage of 69.38%. That is terrible. That is some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of having the best completion percentage are around that. So that is not great. Yards per pass was really high. Pass attempts per game was really high, but sack percentage was high. So I think the consensus here is the defensive line was excellent, especially the outside linebackers and the edges. The secondary was horrific. So similar to the offensive free agency preview, we are going to kind of go through each defensive position, rank its importance in terms of how much we want the Giants to address it versus not address it. But before we get to that, probably the biggest decision the Giants have to make this offseason is with Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's something we talked about last episode. His 5th-year option, it's going to be $16 million. It seems like you guys kind of agree on the decision here. What are the Giants going to do with Kayvon Thibodeaux?
Yeah, I think they're gonna exercise that 5th-year option. Average edge rushers nowadays are making 10 to 15 million. If it's 16 million, I think it's a good deal. Also for the fact that he kind of has this year to grow and show improvement, right? So maybe this year he ends up with 10 plus sacks, and if we didn't take that 5th-year option, he'd be worth 25, 30 million. So even if he has an average year like he did last year, I would say that 16 million is worth it. Just like looking at some of his PFF grades, he's ranked 35th in pass rush. It's not bad. It's not what you want out of the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft for his year, but it's not bad. Paired with Burns, I think is like a lethal combo. I know Burns ranked like top 10 in like almost every single type of like pass rush statistic you can find. A lot of teams are paying attention to him, and it kind of frees up Thibodeau off the other edge. So I do think that we should extend that or exercise that 5th-year option. I know Matt's in agreement, but
Yeah, I definitely think we should. I think it seems pretty reasonable considering how much we invested in him, as you said, in the 5th overall pick. I think it'd be pretty. I don't want to say foolish because I guess I could see somewhat the logic, but like I think it's worth it because I mean the guy still would have. I mean, by the time that say you don't extend him and he has a good year this year, like you said, he's going to be demanding top money, like top edge money, $25 to $30 million. You give yourself another year to see his growth and his trajectory. I mean, because if he's doing what he's doing this year, I mean, the contract's not going to be nearly as much. I mean, he'll probably want a fresh start if I had to guess, but I don't know. I mean, that's a discussion for later on. But in this scenario, we'd have him under contract for 2 more years. He has a good year, let's say, and you extend him longer after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it makes sense for sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is number one, in terms of needing a defensive edge, we have it listed as 1 in terms of importance. You have Brian Burns. The pass rush was excellent this year. And one of the best quotes I heard from it was some sports reporter, it might have been in hockey actually, was the best way to solve an issue on your team is from within the organization. So the Giants know Kayvon Thibodeau very well. They know what he's capable of. That's why they drafted him so high. They're familiar with him. It makes sense to keep him rather than letting him hit the free market. So he still has a lot to prove, but for a $16 million 5th-year option, doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to walk. He'll probably go to the Eagles and be an all-pro. Wouldn't that be crazy? But I guess we'll transition on now, and we'll look at defensive tackle. So this one's kind of interesting. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence got hurt last year, but all-pro. He played in the Pro Bowl. I wasn't super thrilled about that. He's a beast. But you guys have this listed as a 4. So Jesse, I'm a little curious because if the Giants have Dexter Lawrence, why is there a need to sign another star pass rusher, especially in the defensive tackle spot?
So it's the type of defense they run, Chris. So they run a 3-4. So Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, I'm not sure if like the viewers know, like they're listed as like outside linebackers, like on the Giants depth chart in the Giants roster. Like listed as starters from last year, it's Dexter Lawrence, DJ Davidson, and Raheem Nunez-Roches. And it depends what kind of package they put out in the field.
Yeah.
But you're almost always having like Dexter Lawrence and either Davidson or Roches like out there to like stop the rush or rush the pass. And like those two were just actually terrible. What teams were doing is the teams were just double teaming Dexter Lawrence and just letting like their worst linemen like take on Davidson or Nunez-Roches, and they were just getting eaten. I think I have we have it ranked like 4, like on a scale of 1 to 5 in importance. Like I really do think the Giants either need to address it in free agency or the draft. I'd also like to say in the division that the Giants are in with the Commanders and the Eagles and probably the Cowboys are going to go get a running back. Like it's a run heavy division. So if you have 2 good rush stoppers, you have Dexter Lawrence, maybe they get someone else, like you're able to, you're matched up better in 6 out of the 17 games of the season. And, like people don't, a lot of people have the mentality, you go out and you get the best talents you can get. But like, I think we haven't beaten the Eagles like at all in the last 10 years. We haven't beaten Dallas, and like Commanders, we lost twice this year. Like we have to start like thinking about like matching up against division opponents as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Matt, I'll hand it over to you in a little bit, but there are some big names on this list. Javon Hargrave, BJ Hill, DJ Jones, Jerron Reed, Milton Williams, Sebastian Joseph Day. Like these are guys, and be quite frank, most of them have really good run grades. And as much as I want to say like, oh, our pass defense sucks, we need a D tackle to stuff the hole. So Matty L, I'll hand it over to you. If you had to pick a defensive tackle somebody that you're interested in, or you'd be interested in the Giants signing, who would your guy be?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I would love to see BJ Hill's return to the Big Apple. I think the contract projected 2 years, 20 million, so 10 million a year. I think it's good value. I mean, I'm looking at his PFF grades right now. He was 22nd out of 219 defensive tackles, interior defensive tackles, with a 69.2 run defense grade, which is very important to discuss because our run defense grade really it wasn't good. I mean, we're bottom 6 to bottom 8 in the league in run defense, which is unacceptable when you're facing guys like Saquon Barkley twice a year. And I mean, I've seen the Cowboys projected to get Ashton Genty, which would be my literal nightmare. But anyways, I think for the value that you're getting him, his overall grade was good. He had a good pass rush grade. He was 30th overall, 70.2 grade out of 219 interior tackles. I just think it could be a good move for the Giants, and I'd love to see him come back. He was always a solid player for us back in the day.
Yeah, I just don't see a way where they spend a lot of money. Like they don't need a.
Yeah.
I don't think they need another. I think it's Jesse. I like your argument the way the Giants run the defense. Like outside of Lawrence, they have absolutely nobody. So I understand, but are you picking a superstar here that they're gonna ship a bag to? Like what's your philosophy?
Yeah. I was stuck between two people when thinking about this. It was like the two people I was stuck between was Milton Williams and Jevon Reed. I'm gonna end up going with Jevon Reed. I think Milton Williams is a fantastic defensive tackle. He's ranked 2 in PFF and pass rush, but I thought that Jevon Reed's run defense is more important. So I'm going with him. They have his projected contract at 1 year, $6 million, which I think would be a steal. He's ranked 75th in rush defense and 20th in pass rush grade. Like 75th in rush defense is way better than, Nunez Roches and Davidson. It's definitely not elite for a defense tackle position, but it's cheap and it gives us the ability to I guess like function as a defense. He's like an average player out there, and I think that's really like all we need. We need like an average rush stopper to like let Lawrence like thrive. We had 2 like below average like people out there on the field all the time, and that's why Lawrence was getting double teamed and not being able to dominate as much as he was in previous years when he had like Dalvin Tomlinson, for example.
Yeah, like we don't need a D tackle to be getting double digit sacks. Like I think
especially not our second option, and because I don't want to pay him to because the guys that rush the passer so effectively are going to end up making more money anyways. I mean, I think honestly the best. I know it's a free agency episode, but I honestly think going to the draft for this position could be smart.
Yeah, I agree,
because I think you find a guy. Even a second or third round with good potential, he's going to be making like a fraction of I think off the top of my head, if I had to guess, it'd be they pay him around like $4 to $5 million for like early second round picks to maybe even less than that. I don't know, but like a year. So I think you could find a good potential there. And snag a good run stuffer from a collegiate university.
We got to start doing our homework, and like the combine's coming up, the draft is coming up.
My favorite time of the year.
Apple Banter's got some work to do because there's a lot of stuff coming in. But we'll transition now. D tackle we have at a 4. Another position not super important. Something that I feel like almost a couple years ago, before finding Micah McFadden and signing Bobby Okereke, the Giants had no linebackers, but those 2 guys have been absolute beasts. Pretty good in coverage, pretty good at stopping the run. Matty, I'll hand it over to you. There are actually some big names: Levante David, Dre Greenlaw, Bobby Wagner, Robbie Spillane, Ernest Jones, Nick Bolton. But we'll talk about some guys we're interested in. But I don't really think the Giants have linebacker at the top of the pecking order.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I just think they're way more. We'll get to it, but the next 2 positions that we cover, I think, are vastly more important to the success of what we need to do next season to compete. Yeah, as you said, Micah McFadden, he's been a bright spot. He led us in solo tackles this year with 75, and Bobby Okereke was a great trade a few years back. They both had like really good, really solid years. So it makes like the urgency to find like a third guy like pretty low. That's why we have it rated 1 out of 5. If we were to take a guy, I was looking guy like Nick Bolton out of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Why
He
the hell
helped
do
boost
I
our for the New York Giants. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
he'll take,
agreed.
he'll take pennies on the dollar to stay with the Chiefs over coming to
Yeah, I don't
It's
think-
a fair point. But
Yeah.
I mean, the reason is Okereke and Micah McFadden's like they sort of struggled in the coverage grade. I mean, it wasn't awful, but a guy like Nick Bolton was like 40th out of, I believe, was it 109? Let me see. It was 40th out of 189 linebackers in coverage grade. So I mean, it's solid work. Could boost the back end of it. Just help over the middle. I mean, the guy almost won a Super Bowl MVP a few years ago. But as I said, linebacker wouldn't be my first choice, but I think he's a guy you could take a look at, I guess, if you needed to.
Yeah.
Jesse, anything to add here?
No, I agree. I think Okereke, McFadden are a good fit, especially in the defense. You have Burns, you have Thibodeau at the outside linebacker positions. They're going to lose Ojulari. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. So maybe they look for another outside linebacker, maybe coverage kind of guy. I think the draft, like we said before, maybe like 4th or 5th round, they're going to look for.
Yeah.
They're going to look for that.
Still don't understand why we didn't trade
Yeah.
Ojulari at the deadline.
I don't understand why I didn't trade Barkley either, but it's another discussion. We could have gotten.
We don't need to add this can of worms back to the table.
We don't.
Bro's biggest focus now is breaking 80 in golf after he wins the Super Bowl. But moving on now. Now we get into the fun stuff. Well, really not the so fun stuff. The Giants secondary was atrocious last year. They were picked on. They were exposed. They made backup quarterbacks look like MVP candidates. It was rough. A guy like Deonte Banks, we talked about it in the offensive free agency episode, but had a very promising rookie year. And he was bad last year. I mean, the eye test, the advanced, whatever you want to say, his effort, we talked about a little bit. Not a guy that at one point, not last year, but his rookie year, I was saying, wow, this guy could be our lockdown island corner. But it just didn't happen this year. We had some promising rookies come in, but the Giants need a corner and they need a safety. They had a terrible turnover margin. When Danny Dimes led them to the playoffs, they really relied on their turnover margin and their 19 points per game to get them into the playoffs. They can't rely on that anymore because 15 games without forcing a turnover. That falls on the secondary a lot. And once again, defense may be quote unquote boring, but big names in here: Jordan Lewis, Carlton Davis, Charvarius Ward, Rasul Douglas, DJ Reed. A lot of big cornerbacks here. And I would say probably the Giants' most important position defensively to fill. We have it rated a 5. So, Jesse, I'll hand it to you first. What are the Giants going to do at the corner position in free agency?
Yeah, would first like to say something quick about Banks. So I just looked up his PFF rating just because I was curious. He's ranked 108. He's ranked 182nd out of 223 cornerbacks. And then again, just for reference, most teams, I guess they sometimes use 3 corners in certain packages, maybe 4. So I guess 4 times 32, it's still not looking great. Pretty much teams 5th and 6th best corners are better than this guy. I think we might need 2.
Who did you roast using that logic in the offensive? I don't even remember who.
I think it was John Michael Smith. Yeah, I think it was John Michael Smith.
Well, there's 32 centers in the NFL. There's 32 teams, and he's ranked in the 40s. So that means there are backup centers.
It's true. It's true. And I think I do think we actually need 2 corners, whether it's free agency or the draft. I'm gonna start my pick for corner, and it's largely due to what I saw in the Giants defense last year. We struggled heavily with turnovers. We couldn't get them. We had 5 interceptions on the year. I think we had a 14 game span or base 15 where we didn't have
that was the pick. Record. That was a franchise record of not getting the ball off.
Yeah, and you saw in the playoffs, the teams that did well, the Eagles, the Commanders, the Chiefs won the turnover margin in all their games, right? So I think we need to go with a guy who can create those kind of plays. So I think Byron Murphy. Yeah, I think Byron Murphy's the guy we go with from Minnesota. He's their number 1 corner. He's their lockdown guy. PFF, they have him ranked 33rd, but I don't think they account for the importance of interceptions to a team. He had 6 interceptions.
Maybe you're arguing for a ball hawk. This is a ball hawk. Like
Yeah,
they may value a shutdown guy who allows a really low completion percentage, but for the Giants, they need a ball hawk. Matty L, I know you have a different thought on that. We'll get to that. But
yeah.
it's it's a different rating system. So I'll let you continue. But I thought,
Yeah, he's number one out of 223 corners and interceptions with 6, which is again more than the entire Giants team last year. Kind of crazy to think about. I think he's a great corner. He's 36 in coverage. Like when I watch him play, I see someone who shows up in the big moments. So I really like him. They haven't projected at a 4-year, $88 million contract, which is slightly expensive. I think we desperately need a corner. I think a corner would change the way the teams attack us. So I think I think for the sake of just like how important we need a corner, I think we need to spend on this position, and I think Byron Murphy's the guy.
he's also 27. So if they sign him,
Yeah, he's young. Yeah,
they're gonna get his prime. Also, like he allowed 76 catches all year, which is third. That's so if we're talking about an island guy, that's your guy. Mario, you got some different thoughts here. I kind of want to hear your side on the island versus the ball hawk type player.
Well, I mean, the thing I'd say is, I mean, when you tend to be a ball hawk kind of guy, I mean, you put yourself in situations where you could be too aggressive sometimes, I think. And I mean, while that could be good for a team like us that lacked turnovers, especially, I just think we're just not strong enough to be putting ourselves in more weak situations. Like, I don't hate, like, if we signed Byron Murphy Jr., I wouldn't be upset. Like, I'm not trying to say that. Yeah, that guy's a bomb, an absolute bomb. But Malik Neighbors is going to be his this year.
He's got to get a quarterback throwing the ball.
Yeah. Anyways, the guy that I liked had a kind of a sad story. He had a rough year this past year. He tragically lost his daughter at the beginning of 2024, and it kind of screwed him up for the year. Charvarius Ward, I mean, he was one of the best cornerbacks in like all of football before it happened, and I mean, it's totally understandable. I can't even imagine going through something like that. And he's talked about with the team, like trying to get a new start and get out of San Francisco, which I can't blame him. So I think a guy like that would be a great fit. The stat that I liked, I saw Charvarius Ward with a coverage grade with no pressure. He was an 81.3. So, I mean, you see, if you don't generate pressure on the quarterback, I mean, the longer you play, like the wide receiver is going to get open. But Charvarius Ward an 81.3 when when the Niners couldn't get any pressure this year. I just think it's excellent. And he would be a great addition. Like, you get a guy that's a lockdown corner. I mean, I'd like to believe he'll bounce back. I wouldn't doubt a guy like that. He's overcome a lot in his NFL career. I just think it'd be a great signing. His projected contract, I think, was around $15 to $17 million a year, which is pretty fair for a corner nowadays. I mean, they're getting more and more expensive by the year. But yeah, I really like Charvarius Ward.
Yeah, solid guy. Guy I'm going to mention is DJ Reed from the Jets. Honestly, nothing's going to blow you away here, but I think if we're really looking to improve the defense as a whole, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to throw a bag at a corner and maybe neglect the safety position. I kind of want to throw a little bit of money everywhere. Obviously, the secondary is of most need, but DJ Reed is projected a 4-year, $58 million contract. So you're talking about 12, 13, 14 million dollars, like just under $15 million for a guy who's above average in every single category: overall grade, pass rush grade, run defense, coverage grade. The only issue is he had no interceptions last year, which kind of sucks, but could be a cheaper option. He's only 28 years old. If Deonte Banks can somehow return to rookie year form where he was where he was locking down guys, number one wide receivers, DJ Reed would be that perfect 1B, or even 1A, if they flip-flop. So could be an interesting, cheaper option. We'll go to safety now, and we have this one ranked at 3. We talked about Jason Pinnock a little bit. Some younger guys for the Giants stepped up a little bit. But once again, safeties are responsible for not only forcing turnovers, but coverage grades and limiting opposing defenses. The Giants allowed so many explosive plays, and it's because our safeties were kind of lost at times. So, Jesse, I'll give the mic to you first. What do you think the Giants do safeties wise?
Yeah, look, I think it's an interesting situation. You know, like Newman's really young. I think he deserves to start next year. Pinnock wasn't, he wasn't terrible for us. He wasn't great. I think the guy that I really like, and I've been saying it for years, I really like Justin Reed. I think he's a fantastic safety. He's a great football player.
He can also kick footballs too. He
can. Yeah, and actually, we could have used that against the Commanders week 2. Maybe we would have won. But I think the Chiefs, the Chiefs made a mistake letting go Snead in 2023. I think they'd make a mistake not bringing this guy back. He's ranked 7th in receptions allowed out of safeties. He only had 2 picks, but his coverage grade is 12th out of 170 qualifying safeties. I mean, this guy's a beast. They haven't projected at 3 years, $50 million, which is $17 million a year is a lot. I think if we don't sign a corner, I think we should go with Justin Reed. If we do sign a corner, it probably would get it would get hard to bring this kind of safety in. I think Justin Reed's a better safety than Xavier McKinney. Like, we can have that argument.
But Xavier McKinney was a defensive player of the year candidate for most of the year.
He did. Justin Reed consistently year in and year out has been a top safety. So I think we should go with Reed if we don't spend a lot of money on a corner. If we do, then there's some other guys that I think could be a good fit. I don't know what you think.
Definitely bigger name corners. But Matty L, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping as we're saying, is we dump money in the cornerback position this year. I think it's by far the biggest need on this defense. So if we choose to spend some money on safety, the guy that I like, a personal fan favorite of myself, the guy that I like is a Cam Bynum. He's a great locker room guy, real nice dude. I got the pleasure of meeting him when I was in Minnesota this past summer. Very nice dude. He has some great sellies. A little silly guy for the team. I mean, he's a good ball player too.
This isn't Madden, Matty L.
Bud, relax. This team could use some positive vibes on this team.
This team could use a player that can play football and not a guy who can hit the gritty.
You know what, Bud? Well, he still was a 63 overall grade, 89th out of 170. I mean, he's middle tier guy. I mean, not bad. I was looking at his contract. It was projected like around $6 million, though. I did see one where it was projecting him up to around 18, which obviously we're not doing that. That'd be ridiculous.
18, holy.
Yeah, I know. But I think he'd be a solid player. Helps with the run. His run defense grade was high amongst safeties. He around 50s, like 50th safety around there. His coverage grade was middle of the pack. I mean, it's just a guy out there. If we end up spending a lot of money on the cornerback position, I think it'd be worth a shot. I'd like to see him in New York Giants blue.
All right. Well, if the Giants don't spend a lot of money at the cornerback position, I wouldn't be too upset if they threw a bag at Jevon Holland from the Dolphins. We don't even have him on this list. I don't know how we forgot him. But actually, Empire Sports Media has him listed the Giants' name best fit for top free agent safety on the market. Jevon Holland's 24 years old. He's an absolute dog. Past couple of years, he's 24, so he's going into his 5th season now. This is a young guy who, talk about turnovers, like picks the ball off all the time, was one of the anchors of Miami's defense, explosive player, still super young. If we're talking about, I feel like we need a safety that can pick the ball off. Like Xavier McKinney, he had a bunch of picks this year. He was physical.
He had 8, I think, or 9. Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Like Jevon Holland.
Get rid of him.
Yeah,
that was a mistake.
That was a great decision. Who else do we let walk? We let a bunch of players walk.
Yeah, I think
Saquon Barkley.
All right,
you can make the argument that McKinney's loss was felt more than Barkley's.
I'd agree with you. I would agree with you on that.
As Saquon had 2,000 yards, he probably would have had less than half of that.
Yeah, like 1,000 maybe. Like our line's terrible.
Maybe 1,000. I don't know. With Drew Lock handing him off the ball, but
I mean, he definitely would have had a good year. But like, I think the point is like Tracy had a good season in replacement. I mean, we're not arguing that Saquon wouldn't have had a better season, but I think McKinney's like having no McKinney over the top just was not good.
Yeah, I mean, this is like tough to talk about because it's not the exciting, explosive, who's going to score touchdowns and everything. It's the defense. And, there's a reason why defensive players are not the cover of Madden because they're not as exciting. But that doesn't mean they
Richard
aren't.
Sherman has something to say to you, buddy.
You start me with a story ass receiving like Crabtree. That's the result you go get.
Bang.
God, that clip is funny. But
when he called him mediocre, that was crazy. That was crazy.
Dude, the video of the reporter, she was like frightened, like handing him over the mic. That shit cracks me up. So much fun. But we thank you guys for tuning in. A little bit of a slower episode, but for those who are truly diehard Giants fans like we are, we hope you got something out of this, kind of breaking down the numbers, looking at positions of need. Obviously, a lot of free agency and the draft. It's a lot of free agency versus the draft is going to depend what the Giants do in one versus the other. I feel like, we're going to, one of our episodes in the next coming weeks is going to be a mock draft. And, I don't know how much is going to change, but that third overall pick to me, I don't know about you guys, is kind of a wild card. They could draft Travis Hunter, who would change both the quarterback and wide receiver position, or they could take a quarterback, or they could take an edge. Like, I really don't know what they're going to do with that pick. So a lot of what happens in free agency is going to be determined by the draft and vice versa. Who knows what Joe Shane is cooking up, but all I'm saying is if they run out this same defense, especially in the secondary, there's going to be some problems. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Later this week, we'll be talking about the Knicks' mess against the top 3 teams in the East. It's just been disappointing, man. And the Rangers, holy shit, lost 8-2 to the Sabres. Like, it is not a fun. The episodes are getting tough to talk about, but we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.